Captain Marcus Kane stood motionless beside the polished marble pillar, his dark uniform pressed to military perfection. Queen Helena sat at her gilded desk, reviewing trade agreements with practiced efficiency. The afternoon sun filtered through stained glass windows, casting colored shadows across the throne room's pristine floor. Princess Isabella burst through the massive oak doors without announcement, her silk dress rustling with urgency. The 12-year-old's face flushed with panic as she rushed toward her mother's desk. Marcus's trained eyes immediately assessed the situation, cataloging every detail of the child's distressed appearance. "Mother, you must listen to me," Isabella said, her voice trembling with barely contained fear. "The new ambassador from Earth is not what he appears to be." Queen Helena set down her ornate pen and regarded her daughter with measured calm. "Princess, we have discussed proper protocol for entering the throne room." "This cannot wait for protocol," Isabella insisted, glancing nervously at the carved ceiling. "I overheard him speaking to someone when he thought he was alone. His words were not human words, Mother. The sounds he made were impossible for any human throat." Marcus felt his pulse quicken while maintaining his stoic expression. Ambassador Richard Coleman had arrived 3 days earlier with impeccable credentials from Earth's diplomatic corps. The man had passed every security screening, every background investigation, every biological scan required for alien species seeking audience with the crown. "What exactly did you hear, Isabella?" the Queen asked, her voice betraying no emotion. Strange clicking sounds mixed with what sounded like whale songs, but deeper and more complex. "He was responding to something, Mother. Something that was not there. At least not visibly." Isabella's hand shook as she described the encounter. When he finished speaking, he looked directly at the security camera in the corridor and smiled. Not a normal smile. His teeth seemed different, sharper than before. Queen Helena exchanged a brief glance with Marcus. The captain understood the silent command immediately. His years of service had taught him to read the Queen's subtle communications, and this look carried the weight of genuine concern masked by royal composure. "Where did this conversation take place?" Marcus asked, speaking for the first time since assuming his post that morning. "The Eastern Wing, near the portrait gallery. I was selecting flowers for tonight's dinner arrangements when I heard the sounds coming from the ambassador's guest quarters." Isabella turned to face the captain directly. "He scheduled a private meeting with Mother for this evening to discuss expanded trade relations." The Queen rose from her chair with deliberate slowness, her emerald gown flowing like water around her feet. "Captain Kane, please verify the security recordings from the Eastern Wing. I want every moment of Ambassador Coleman's stay reviewed within the hour," Marcus bowed. "Precisely. Your Majesty, what if the recordings show nothing unusual?" "Then we proceed with caution," Queen Helena replied. "Isabella, you will remain in your chambers until further notice. Captain Kane will assign additional guards to your wing." The princess nodded solemnly, understanding the gravity of her mother's decision. Royal children learned early that their observations carried weight in matters of state security, but also that false alarms could destabilize diplomatic relations with entire worlds. Marcus activated his communication device with practiced discretion. "Command Center, this is Captain Kane. Initiate Quiet Protocol 7 on all surveillance systems. Priority review of guest quarter recordings. Timestamp beginning 72 hours ago." The response crackled through his earpiece immediately. "Understood, Captain. Analysis beginning now." "Mother," Isabella said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, "there was something else." When he looked at the camera, his eyes reflected the corridor lighting differently than they should have, like an animal's eyes in darkness. Queen Helena moved to the tall windows overlooking the palace gardens. Her reflection in the glass showed no trace of the concern that Marcus knew she felt. "Captain, I want continuous monitoring of Ambassador Coleman's activities, discreet but comprehensive." "Already in motion, Your Majesty," Marcus confirmed. The throne room fell into tense silence as they processed the implications of Isabella's report. If the princess was correct, they faced a potential security threat unlike any they had encountered. If she was mistaken, they risked insulting Earth's diplomatic representation over a child's overactive imagination. Marcus calculated response scenarios while maintaining his vigilant posture. His training demanded preparation for every possibility, from alien infiltration to elaborate deception. The ambassador's arrival had coincided with sensitive negotiations regarding mining rights on Earth's outer colonies, making the timing particularly suspicious. "Isabella," the Queen said without turning from the window, "when you return to your chambers, document everything you remember about this encounter, every detail no matter how insignificant it may seem." The princess curtsied formally. "Yes, Mother. Should I cancel tonight's dinner arrangements?" "No. We proceed as planned, but with modifications." Queen Helena finally turned to face her daughter and captain. "Tonight's meeting will test the validity of your observations." Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle across his shoulders as the royal family's safety became his primary concern. Whatever Ambassador Coleman truly represented, the evening would provide answers that could determine the fate of the entire kingdom. The security alert tone sounded softly through Marcus's earpiece as the first surveillance reports began arriving from the analysis team. The captain's expression remained unchanged, but his hand moved instinctively closer to his ceremonial sword as Queen Helena dismissed Princess Isabella with a mother's protective embrace. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell's voice came through Marcus's communication device with unusual urgency. "Captain, you need to see these recordings immediately. The thermal imaging shows something that should not be possible." Marcus acknowledged the transmission while maintaining his protective stance beside the Queen. The preliminary analysis had detected temperature variations in Ambassador Coleman's body that defied human physiology. His core temperature fluctuated between normal human ranges and readings consistent with reptilian species, shifting without apparent pattern or external cause. "Your Majesty," Marcus said carefully, "initial surveillance review indicates Princess Isabella's observations may have merit." Queen Helena nodded once, her composed exterior revealing nothing of the strategic calculations occurring behind her calm expression. "Full discretion protocol." The captain issued the command through encrypted channels while studying the palace's afternoon activity patterns. Ambassador Coleman had scheduled meetings with 3 different department heads before his evening appointment with the Queen. Each meeting represented a potential security risk if Isabella's assessment proved correct. "Ma'am," Marcus continued, "I recommend relocating tonight's meeting to the secured conference room. Multiple exit routes and enhanced monitoring capabilities." "Agreed." "Also arrange for Dr. Amanda Foster from Xenobiology to be on standby. If we are dealing with a non-human entity, her expertise may prove valuable." The Queen moved to her private communication console, her fingers dancing across diplomatic channels with practiced efficiency. Marcus watched her compose messages to Earth's embassy while simultaneously preparing contingency protocols for various species known for infiltration capabilities. Defense Minister Walsh arrived within minutes, her military bearing evident in every precise step. "Your Majesty, Captain Kane, what is the nature of this security concern?" Marcus briefed her quickly while maintaining surveillance of the throne room's multiple entrances. Walsh's expression grew increasingly serious as she absorbed the details of Princess Isabella's encounter and the supporting evidence from thermal scanning. "How certain are we about the species identification capabilities?" Walsh asked. "Dr. Foster is running comparative analysis now," Marcus replied. "Her preliminary assessment suggests we may be dealing with a Zephyrian shapeshifter or similar mimic species." Queen Helena turned from her console. "Minister Walsh, what are the diplomatic implications if our suspicions prove correct? Earth's government may be unaware of the substitution." Walsh accessed her tablet, reviewing recent intelligence reports. "There have been unconfirmed incidents of diplomatic impersonation in 3 other systems over the past 6 months. Marcus received another transmission from the analysis team. "Captain, facial recognition software has identified microexpressions inconsistent with human emotional responses. The subject appears to be consciously controlling facial muscle movements rather than expressing genuine emotions." The evidence continued mounting against Ambassador Coleman's humanity, but Marcus knew they needed definitive proof before taking action. Diplomatic immunity protected ambassadors from most forms of investigation, requiring extreme care in their approach. "I want biological sampling from tonight's dinner service," Queen Helena declared. "If he consumes human food, we should be able to detect any unusual metabolic byproducts." Walsh nodded approvingly. "Smart approach. Non-invasive but informative." Dr. Foster's voice came through the communication system. "Your Majesty, I have completed the comparative thermal analysis. The temperature patterns matched those of Zephyrian infiltrators documented in our xenobiology database. These beings can maintain human appearance for extended periods but struggle with consistent body temperature regulation. Marcus felt the pieces of the puzzle aligning with military precision. Foster, what are their typical objectives when infiltrating human governments? Information gathering primarily, though some factions engage in sabotage or political manipulation. They are highly intelligent and typically work in small cells. The Queen processed this information while reviewing her evening schedule. Captain Kane, I want you personally present during tonight's meeting. Full ceremonial protocol, but prepared for immediate action if necessary. Understood, Your Majesty. What level of response authorization should I maintain? Whatever level proves necessary to protect the crown and our diplomatic integrity. Marcus appreciated the Queen's decisive leadership under pressure. Her willingness to trust Princess Isabella's observations while maintaining proper investigative protocols demonstrated the wisdom that had kept their planet stable for decades. Walsh departed to coordinate with intelligence services, while Dr. Foster prepared detection equipment disguised as standard diplomatic recording devices. Marcus remained with the Queen, reviewing security footage from Coleman's earlier meetings and noting subtle behavioral anomalies that had been overlooked during initial screening. The ambassador had avoided direct physical contact with other humans, maintaining careful distance during handshakes and social interactions. His dietary preferences during meals leaned heavily toward rare proteins and avoided most vegetable-based dishes, small details that individually meant nothing, but collectively painted a picture of non-human physiology hidden beneath carefully constructed human appearance. Mother always taught me to trust my instincts about people, Queen Helena said quietly, breaking the analytical silence. Isabella inherited that same intuition. Marcus smiled slightly. Princess Isabella may have prevented a significant security breach through her observation skills, or we may be overreacting to a child's active imagination, the Queen replied. Either way, we respond appropriately. The afternoon sun began its descent toward the horizon as final preparations for the evening's diplomatic meeting took shape. Marcus coordinated with his security team while Dr. Foster calibrated detection equipment. Queen Helena reviewed her negotiation strategy, preparing to conduct normal diplomatic business while secretly testing their visitors' true identity. Ambassador Coleman's true nature would be revealed within hours, one way or another. Ambassador Coleman arrived precisely at the scheduled time, his diplomatic bearing impeccable as palace guards escorted him through the secured corridors. Marcus observed every detail of the man's movement patterns, noting the slight hesitation before each doorway, and the way his eyes tracked multiple exit routes simultaneously. Your Majesty, Coleman said with a perfect bow, his accent carrying just enough Earth inflection to sound authentic. I am honored by this private audience. Queen Helena gestured toward the conference table where an elaborate dinner had been arranged. Ambassador, please join me for our discussion. I find negotiations proceed more smoothly over good food. Marcus positioned himself near the chamber's primary exit, his ceremonial uniform concealing advanced communication equipment and non-lethal restraint devices. Dr. Foster monitored from the adjacent observation room, her scanners disguised as standard security equipment analyzing Coleman's biological readings. The ambassador examined the meal with apparent appreciation, but Marcus noticed his prolonged assessment of each dish. Coleman selected primarily meat-based items, avoiding anything containing certain spices that Dr. Foster had identified as potentially harmful to Zephyrian physiology. Earth's trade proposal shows remarkable flexibility, the Queen began, opening negotiations while silently testing their visitors' knowledge, particularly the mining rights on Kepler 442b. Coleman nodded enthusiastically. Yes, that represents significant mutual benefit. The mineral deposits there could revolutionize both our economies. Marcus felt his suspicions intensify. Kepler 442b was a fictional planet designation that Dr. Foster had suggested as a test. Any legitimate Earth ambassador would have recognized the false reference immediately. Tell me about Earth's recent diplomatic successes in the Andromeda sector, Queen Helena continued smoothly. Quite promising developments, Coleman replied without hesitation. The negotiations with the Nexus Coalition particularly stand out. Another fabricated reference that Coleman accepted without question. Marcus activated his communication device with subtle hand movements, alerting the security team to prepare for potential containment procedures. "Doctor," Foster's voice whispered through his earpiece. "Thermal regulation failing. Core temperature dropping rapidly." The Queen maintained perfect diplomatic composure while internally processing the confirmation of their suspicions. "Ambassador, you seem to be experiencing some discomfort. Perhaps the temperature in this room is too warm for your preferences?" Coleman's eyes flickered with something that might have been recognition before quickly returning to diplomatic neutrality. "The temperature is perfectly comfortable, Your Majesty." Marcus watched sweat begin forming on the ambassador's forehead despite his claims of comfort. The being's human disguise was struggling to maintain consistency under stress and the carefully selected environmental conditions. "I have heard fascinating reports about Zephyrian diplomatic customs," the Queen said casually, as if making polite conversation. "Their shape-shifting abilities must make international relations quite complex." The false ambassador's fork clattered against his plate as his hand trembled involuntarily. His carefully maintained human expression cracked for just a moment, revealing something predatory beneath a diplomatic facade. "I am not familiar with that species," Coleman said, his voice carrying a slight harmonic undertone that had not been present earlier. Dr. Foster's scanners detected the vocal anomaly immediately. Zephyrian vocal cords produce distinctive harmonic frequencies when under psychological pressure, a biological response they could not consciously suppress. Marcus stepped forward slightly, his position now clearly protective rather than merely ceremonial. "Ambassador, are you certain you are feeling well? Your vocal patterns seem somewhat strained." Coleman rose from his chair with fluid grace that seemed almost too smooth for human joints. "I appreciate your concern, Captain, but I assure you my health is excellent." The Queen remained seated, projecting calm authority even as she recognized the critical moment approaching. "Perhaps we should postpone our negotiations until you have recovered from your journey. Space travel can be quite taxing on the human body." "I am not human," Coleman said quietly, his diplomatic mask finally falling away completely. "But I am here on a peaceful mission." Marcus's hand moved to his sidearm while maintaining non-threatening posture. "What is your true identity and purpose?" The being that had appeared as Ambassador Coleman underwent a subtle transformation, his features becoming more angular and his eyes taking on a golden luminescence. "I am Diplomatic Agent Kythera of the Zephyrian Exploratory Council. My mission was information gathering, not hostile action." Dr. Foster entered the room with security escort, her scanning equipment openly displayed. "Agent Kythera, your infiltration violates 17 different interstellar treaties regarding diplomatic impersonation. The real Ambassador Coleman is safe and unharmed," Kythera replied. "He was temporarily detained for his own protection while we assess this planet's potential for formal diplomatic contact." Queen Helena stood slowly, her royal authority filling the room despite the unprecedented situation. "You chose deception over direct contact. That decision has damaged any possibility of trust between our peoples. Your species has a documented history of hostile responses to first contact scenarios. We chose caution over potential warfare." Marcus kept his weapon ready while Dr. Foster continued her biological assessments. The revelation that Coleman had been replaced rather than killed changed the diplomatic implications significantly, but the violation of sovereignty remained unacceptable. "Where's the real ambassador?" the Queen demanded. "Safe aboard our research vessel in your system's outer asteroid belt. He believes he is participating in extended cultural exchange programs." Dr. Foster reviewed her scanner readings. "Your Majesty, Agent Kythera shows no signs of hostile biological agents or weapons. His physiology is consistent with peaceful reconnaissance rather than military infiltration." The Queen considered this information while weighing diplomatic options. "Agent Kythera, your methods were unacceptable, but your stated objectives suggest possibility for legitimate negotiations. We hope to establish preliminary assessment of your civilization's readiness for formal contact." Marcus maintained his protective stance while recognizing the historic nature of the moment. First contact with an alien species was occurring in real time, triggered by a 12-year-old princess's observational skills and her mother's willingness to trust those observations. "Release Ambassador Coleman immediately," Queen Helena commanded. Then we will discuss proper diplomatic protocols for future contact between our species. Agent Kathira nodded respectfully. Already in progress, Your Majesty. He will be returned within the hour, with his memories of cultural exchange intact, but without knowledge of our true nature. Dr. Foster approached cautiously. Agent Kathira, would you be willing to participate in formal xenobiological documentation? This could be invaluable for both our species' understanding. Only with proper diplomatic immunity and mutual scientific exchange agreements. The Queen moved toward the Chamber's communication console. I will need to contact Earth's government immediately. This situation has implications far beyond our planet's borders. Marcus coordinated with security teams to ensure Ambassador Coleman's safe return, while maintaining containment of Agent Kathira until formal protocols could be established. The diplomatic crisis was evolving into potentially the most significant event in human history. Agent Kathira, the Queen asked, how many of your people are aware of our civilization? A small exploratory council. Your species was identified as approaching technological readiness for interstellar contact within the next several decades. The weight of representing humanity in first contact negotiations settled heavily on Queen Helena's shoulders. Every decision would influence the future relationship between species, potentially affecting billions of lives across multiple worlds. Dr. Foster completed her preliminary biological analysis while Agent Kathira waited patiently for official diplomatic resolution. The afternoon's events had transformed from routine trade negotiations into historic first contact, all triggered by Princess Isabella's sharp observation skills and her mother's wisdom in trusting those observations. Marcus reflected on the day's events as he coordinated security protocols for humanity's first official alien diplomatic contact, knowing that the princess's courage in speaking up had potentially prevented years of covert infiltration and eventual diplomatic disaster. The communication console chimed as Queen Helena established contact with Earth's government, beginning conversations that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the galaxy. Earth's Secretary of State materialized on the holographic display within minutes of Queen Helena's urgent diplomatic transmission. Margaret Thompson's expression shifted from routine diplomatic concern to barely contained astonishment as the situation's magnitude became clear. Your Majesty, are you certain we are dealing with legitimate extraterrestrial contact? Secretary Thompson, I have Agent Kathira present for direct communication if you require verification, the Queen replied, gesturing toward the Zephyrian diplomat who had resumed his more natural appearance. Agent Kathira stepped forward with fluid grace. Secretary Thompson, I regret the deception involved in my initial approach. Our species has observed yours for several decades while debating optimal contact protocols. Thompson's diplomatic training took over despite the historic nature of the moment. Agent Kathira, you understand that impersonating an Earth ambassador constitutes a serious violation of interstellar law. Indeed, though our legal framework operates under different assumptions about species contact protocols, we hope to minimize potential trauma associated with first contact scenarios. Dr. Foster had been monitoring the conversation while analyzing data from her continued scans. Secretary Thompson, Agent Kathira's biology shows no signs of deception regarding his stated objectives. His people appear genuinely interested in peaceful contact. Marcus maintained his protective position while coordinating with Earth's security services through encrypted channels. The implications of this contact extended far beyond simple diplomatic relations, potentially affecting military strategies, scientific development, and social structures across human-controlled space. What is the status of Ambassador Coleman? Thompson inquired. Being returned as promised, Agent Kathira confirmed. He will arrive within 30 minutes with memories of extensive cultural exchange programs, but no knowledge of our true nature pending official diplomatic resolution. Queen Helena reviewed her diplomatic display showing incoming communications from dozens of Earth's allied nations and colonies. Secretary Thompson, this situation requires immediate convening of the Earth Alliance Council. Every human government needs representation in these negotiations. Agreed. I am authorizing emergency protocols now. Thompson turned toward Agent Kathira. Sir, are you prepared to participate in formal first contact negotiations with representatives from all human governments? That was our ultimate objective, though we had hoped for more gradual introduction. Dr. Foster interjected carefully. Agent Cathera, how many other species has your civilization contacted? We have established formal relations with 47 different spacefaring civilizations. Humans represent our 48th contact, though admittedly our approach with your species has been uniquely cautious. Marcus processed this information while calculating security implications. If the Zephyrians were experienced in interspecies diplomacy, their cautious approach toward humans suggested either unusual wariness or specific knowledge about human behavior that influenced their strategy. Why the particular caution regarding humanity? Queen Helena asked. Agent Kithara hesitated before responding. Your species exhibits unusual combinations of technological advancement and territorial aggression. Most civilizations develop diplomatic sophistication before achieving interstellar capability. Humans appear to be developing both simultaneously. Secretary Thompson frowned. You consider us uniquely aggressive? Not uniquely, but unusually so for your technological level. Most species we contact have resolved internal conflicts before developing space travel capabilities. Dr. Foster found this assessment fascinating from xenobiological perspective. Agent Cathera, would you characterize human evolution as atypical compared to other spacefaring species? Remarkably so. Your development timeline compresses evolutionary stages that typically require significantly longer periods. This creates both opportunities and risks for successful interstellar integration. The Queen absorbed this perspective on humanity's place in galactic civilization while managing incoming communications from Earth's governmental representatives. Agent Cathera, what specific concerns did your people have about direct contact? Primarily the possibility of defensive reactions based on territorial instincts rather than diplomatic curiosity. Many human governmental responses to unknown threats involve military preparation rather than communication. Marcus realized the accuracy of this assessment, while also recognizing its implications for future human-alien relations. Agent Kythra, how do successful first contacts typically proceed with other species? Usually through decades of gradual introduction, cultural exchange, and mutual scientific cooperation, before formal diplomatic recognition. Ambassador Coleman's transport appeared on the security monitors as he returned to the palace, his memory intact but edited to exclude knowledge of alien contact. The transition between deception and truth was occurring in real time, with historical implications that none of them could fully comprehend. Your Majesty, Secretary Thompson said, I have authorization to invite Agent Cathera to Earth for formal first contact ceremonies before the United Nations General Assembly. This would provide appropriate diplomatic recognition while establishing protocols for future interspecies relations. Agent Cathera considered this proposal carefully. I would be honored to participate in such ceremonies, provided appropriate security guarantees for both parties. Dr. Foster was already preparing comprehensive biological and cultural documentation protocols. This represents an unprecedented opportunity for scientific advancement on both sides. The Queen turned toward Marcus. Captain Kane, I want you to coordinate security arrangements for Agent Cathera's continued diplomatic immunity. This situation has moved beyond planetary security into interstellar relations. Marcus bowed formally. Your Majesty, should I prepare protocols for additional Zephyrian diplomatic personnel? A reasonable question, Agent Cathera replied. My success here will determine whether additional diplomatic missions are authorized by our Council. The weight of responsibility for humanity's first interstellar diplomatic relationship rested heavily on everyone present. Secretary Thompson was already coordinating with Earth's military and scientific leadership, while Queen Helena managed communications with allied governments across human space. Agent Kythera, the Queen said, I want to acknowledge that despite our concerns about your methods, Princess Isabella's observations may have created the optimal outcome for both our species. Your daughter's perceptiveness prevented what could have been years of covert observation followed by potentially traumatic revelation. Her courage in reporting unusual observations demonstrates the intellectual curiosity that originally attracted our interest in human civilization. Marcus smiled slightly at the recognition of Princess Isabella's role in this historic moment. Agent Cathera, When formal negotiations begin, will your people be prepared to discuss technology sharing and cultural exchange programs? Those topics will certainly be included in comprehensive diplomatic negotiations. Your species' rapid development suggests mutual benefit from structured technology and scientific cooperation. As Ambassador Coleman entered the palace, unaware of the monumental changes occurring around him, Queen Helena prepared to manage the complex transition from secret first contact to public diplomatic recognition. The afternoon that had begun with a child's worried observations was ending with humanity's entry into galactic civilization. Dr. Foster reviewed her data one final time before preparing her reports for the scientific community. Agent Kythera, this has been the most significant day in human scientific history. For our species as well, the Zephyrian diplomat replied. Successful first contact opens possibilities neither of our civilizations could achieve alone. The secure communication channels filled with messages as news of successful first contact spread through carefully controlled diplomatic networks, marking the beginning of humanity's journey into interstellar relations. The days following first contact transformed from diplomatic crisis into carefully orchestrated integration as Earth's governments worked with Agent Kythera to establish formal protocols for interspecies relations. Princess Isabella became an inadvertent hero whose observations had prevented potential decades of covert infiltration and eventual diplomatic catastrophe. When the truth was finally revealed, Queen Helena hosted a private dinner for Agent Kythera 3 weeks later, this time with full knowledge of his identity and proper diplomatic protocols observed. The Zephyrian diplomat had adapted remarkably well to human food preferences while maintaining his natural appearance, though he still favored protein-heavy dishes that accommodated his species' metabolic requirements. Agent Kythera, Princess Isabella said during the meal. Do other planets have children who notice things that adults miss? The diplomat smiled genuinely. Indeed they do, Princess. Young observers often detect patterns that adults overlook due to preconceived expectations. Your species is not unique in this regard, though your particular combination of curiosity and courage is relatively uncommon. Dr. Foster had spent the intervening weeks documenting Zephyrian biology and culture for humanity's scientific databases. While Agent Kythera learned about human civilization through direct observation, the cultural exchange had proven mutually beneficial, with both species gaining insights that would have taken years to develop through traditional diplomatic channels. The United Nations Assembly has confirmed the date for formal first contact ceremonies, Secretary Thompson announced through the communication system. Agent Kythera, are your people prepared for public revelation of our contact? The Exploratory Council has approved public disclosure following careful evaluation of human governmental responses. Your species has demonstrated remarkable adaptability to first contact protocols. Marcus had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Security, a newly created position responsible for managing the complex safety requirements of alien diplomatic relations. His experience during the initial contact had proven invaluable as Earth's governments established precedents for future extraterrestrial encounters. Agent Kythera, has your council provided any information about other species that might attempt contact with humanity? Marcus asked. Several civilizations have expressed interest in formal relations following news of our successful contact. However, all future approaches will follow established diplomatic protocols rather than covert observation. The Queen reviewed reports from Earth's major governments showing surprisingly positive public reaction to carefully released information about alien contact. Agent Kythera, what factors contributed to your council's assessment that humans were ready for interstellar relations? Most concerning was your species' tendency toward territorial conflicts, but recent trends showed improvement in diplomatic resolution of disputes. Dr. Welf, Foster finished her comprehensive biological analysis of Zephyrian physiology, providing humanity's first detailed understanding of non-human intelligence. Agent Kythera, your people's shape-shifting abilities represent fascinating evolutionary adaptation. Would your council consider collaborative research projects? Certainly, though technology sharing agreements will require extensive negotiation between our respective scientific communities and governmental oversight. Princess Isabella had been attending special briefings on interstellar relations, preparing for her future role as someone who would grow up in an era of regular contact with multiple alien civilizations. Her natural observational skills were being developed through formal training in diplomatic protocol and xenobiological recognition. Agent Kythera? Isabella asked thoughtfully. Do you think other alien species will be as careful about contacting humans as your people were? The Zephyrian diplomat considered her question seriously. Not necessarily, Princess. Each species approaches first contact based on their own cultural values and previous experiences. Some may be more direct, others more cautious than we were. Queen Helena found this assessment both encouraging and concerning for humanity's future in galactic politics. Agent Kythera, would your people be willing to serve as intermediaries for other species interested in contacting humanity? That possibility has been discussed by our council. We could certainly provide guidance and cultural translation services for civilizations seeking formal relations with yours. Ambassador Coleman had returned to his duties completely unaware of his temporary replacement, his memories of cultural exchange programs intact, and his diplomatic relationships unaffected by the events he never knew occurred. The seamless transition demonstrated Zephyrian technological sophistication while raising questions about similar infiltrations that may have gone undetected. Marcus coordinated with intelligence services worldwide to review historical diplomatic encounters for signs of previous alien contact. Agent Kythera, have other members of your species conducted similar observation missions? Not on Earth specifically, though standard protocols involve preliminary assessment before formal contact. Your planet was unique in requiring such extended observation due to your species' rapid development timeline. Secretary Thompson had been working with Earth's major governments to establish the United Nations Department of Interstellar Relations, with Queen Helena serving as the first director of First Contact Protocols. Agent Kythera, when do you anticipate your people will be ready to establish permanent diplomatic missions on Earth? Following successful completion of formal recognition ceremonies and establishment of mutual security agreements, we estimate approximately 6 months for full diplomatic implementation. Dr. Foster was already planning joint research facilities that could accommodate both human and Zephyrian scientists working on collaborative projects. The potential for technological and scientific advancement through interspecies cooperation was staggering, affecting everything from medical research to space exploration capabilities. The evening concluded with Agent Kythera expressing gratitude for Princess Isabella's keen observations and courage in reporting suspicious behavior. Her actions had not only prevented potential diplomatic disaster but had created optimal conditions for successful first contact between species. Princess Isabella, Agent Kythera said formally, your species' future in galactic civilization has been significantly enhanced by your observational courage. You have earned the respect of the Zephyrian Exploratory Council. Marcus reflected on how a routine afternoon of palace security had evolved into humanity's entry into interstellar relations. Princess Isabella's sharp eyes and willingness to trust her instincts had changed the course of human history, proving that the most significant moments often begin with someone brave enough to speak up when something seems wrong. As Agent Kythera departed for his temporary residence at Earth's diplomatic compound, Queen Helena reviewed communications from dozens of governments preparing for humanity's formal introduction to galactic civilization. The future that Princess Isabella would inherit was vastly different from the one anyone had imagined just weeks earlier, expanded beyond planetary boundaries into possibilities none of them had dared to dream. The young princess, now recognized as humanity's unofficial ambassador to the future, continued developing her natural talents for observation and analysis, knowing that her generation would be the first to grow up among the stars with alien friends and truly limitless possibilities for exploration.